Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. You can see here that I have my lovely little man.
Was that a spider? I hate spiders. Hello, how you doing? You doing good? Got my lovely man here on my show, on my YouTube show. Tune in to Jada's YouTube show channel. Yeah.
Today we are going to be talking about how OCD impacts relationships. This is part 3 of the series. In part 1, I chatted about my emotional battle with OCD and how it almost ended my life. In part 2 of this series, I chatted with you about how OCD almost ended my relationship with God. I would suggest you go back and watch those videos to see kind of the progression of I almost ended my life, I almost ended my relationship with God, and then OCD actually almost made me and made us end our relationship. So you can see I have my amazing boyfriend here, and today we are just going to chat about the realness of dealing with a mental illness in relationship. So often we focus on the people that are struggling with a mental illness, as we should. It is so hard to be somebody who struggles with mental illness, specifically in my case, OCD. It is hard, but we forget to chat about the people who are in relationship with those people. And so today I just want to be very real and transparent with you, and my baby is also going to be very real and transparent with you about just the struggles that we've been through and how we've been able to come out on the other side. So what I am going to do is I'm going to have my baby share with you about just who he is, how we met, and just kind of how long we've been together. So baby, take it away.
Hello, my name's Jarrett, and I'm from the UK. I'm just kidding, I'm not from the UK. But my name is Jarrett though. And yeah, we met because this one slid into my DMs. Yeah, that's how we met. I'm like, who is this bold woman?
Bold, fine woman.
Right, bold, fine woman. And we had a mutual friend, Laura. Shout out to Laura. She's an amazing human. Hey, Laura. And yeah, we had this mutual friend, her bestie, and somebody that I know. And so I'm like, all right, I'll see what this girl is all about. And so yeah, we had dinner. Usually I don't have dinner on a first date because it's a little bit too romantic.
Buffalo Wild Wings is too romantic.
It's too romantic, you know. It's nighttime, you know, the lights are dim and whatnot. And yeah, so that's how we met. A little bit about me. I used to work in the anti-human trafficking field. I was an executive director helping victims of human trafficking for almost 5 years in that role as an executive director. And then prior to that, I worked in healthcare. I also volunteered in the anti-human trafficking field. So I worked in that space for over 10 years now. I still do training and consulting. And yeah, I like race cars. A little bit about me. Wish I could be a race car driver one day, someday in the future, maybe. We'll see.
So yes, ladies, I would encourage you to take your shot.
Shoot your shot, girl.
It worked with me. Yeah, here we are 2 years later, and it's been quite the journey. So, my next question for you, darling, is what has been the hardest thing for you in this journey of me overcoming OCD and my healing journey? What has been the toughest thing for you?
It's been the toughest thing. Straight into it, she goes. There's been multiple tough things, but one of the core tough things is having a woman who is pretty dang great, and us getting to know each other, even in the early years and whatnot. And even on our first date, even though I was like, I would just see what this is about and if this is gonna actually go anywhere or not. Obviously it went somewhere. And yeah, having this incredible woman with a very loud laugh, which is oddly one of the things that attracted me to her. Having this great woman who there were some things getting in the way of the health of our relationship. That's probably one of the hardest things because there's a lot of goodness, but then there were a lot of challenges. early on, and I would say probably like 3-4 months into our relationship and whatnot. A lot of those challenges that stem from OCD started to come up even more, and so that would probably be one of the biggest challenges. I would say the second largest challenge was the comments, the things that were said, and I know she talked about that in her initial video, talking about how OCD almost ended her life, the thoughts, the comments that were a result of her compulsions and wanting to let those thoughts out because it provided some temporary relief and whatnot. I was on the receiving end of those, what do you call them, rockets or missiles or something like that. I was on the receiving end of that. And so while learning that, and sifting through of, you know, who is Jada and how that's being, and how OCD is impacting how she's presenting who she is, right? And I know she talked about in her first video with things of like telling me she doesn't like me, and I'm like, girl,
I think you do.
You clingy. How you want to see me all the time, hang out all the time, all these different things. I'm like, yeah, you don't really do that with somebody you don't like. So, you know, sifting through those things of how she was showing up in these very positive ways, but also how OCD was showing up in some very negative ways.
The toughest part for me was in that I knew truth. Like in OCD, you always know truth. And the truth was, like, I knew that I liked him. I hadn't been in a relationship in a really long time. And I was like, this man is amazing. He loves God and all the things that I really desired in a man.
Excuse me. Sorry, not COVID.
Yeah, also fine. All these things I really desired in a man, and he made me laugh, and just all these things that I really enjoyed. And thoughts made me believe something else. And that's the trickiest part of OCD, is when you know truth and when you care about something a lot, it will totally attack that and make you feel and think something completely different. And so, he was pretty much the target of all these thoughts for about a year, until I started to realize, like, this is not okay. I cannot treat him like this. He cannot be my target for target practice with these OCD thoughts. He can't constantly take these thoughts, and for so long he was taking them and just being like, oh, that's weird. And I'd be like, yeah, I didn't really mean that, sorry, but still they impact him. And so, thanks for sharing that.
Even in that, I just want to be clear that, you know, it wasn't like it was a daily thing. Maybe once a week or something, maybe once every other week. Like, and it wasn't like some massive thing. Like, it would just be little things that would be annoying sometimes. And so it wasn't like this constant barrage of comments or thoughts she may have been dealing with, a barrage of thoughts, but how that was released to me, it wasn't like this constant daily thing. But while, like I said, I'm sure she's dealing with it sometimes on a daily basis.
So, darling, you talked a little bit about how OCD showed up in our relationship for you. My second question then is, how did those things make you feel? How were you feeling in the very early stages of our relationship when we didn't really have it identified yet? And you kind of were like, what is going on? How did those comments and those missiles, as we call them, make you feel?
A bit confused. And like, you knew that you were struggling with thoughts and whatnot. You just didn't have the OCD diagnosis label, information to rely on, right? You just knew that you struggle with thoughts, and you knew that, like, those thoughts weren't true. to you. It wasn't your really like your core belief. You know what I mean? It was these intrusive thoughts that you were battling. And so two things I'm really good at is growing companies and growing people. And so that's a part of what I've done in my background and like talent development and whatnot. And so being able to look at, all right, well, here is how she's presenting, like here how she usually is, but here are these things that are kind of interfering from her being great, really. And so the restorative nature that I have in figuring things out and whatnot, I think that definitely played a role into being together still. And also there were so many positive things about you. There were so many positive things about you that I was willing to stick around and see where this could go. And then also I was talking to my counselor, my therapist. Yes, therapy is great. Real men go to therapy, for real though. And so I will talk to my counselor about it as well. And it was really challenging. There were definitely times where I'm like, I don't really need this in my life right now. It was stressful at times. And like I said before, I was, before meeting Jada, I was single, obviously, and on this, just had this mindset of like, man, I'm ready to be single for a while. I came out of a previous relationship and whatnot, and just ready to be single for a bit. And so, with the challenges that were going on, I'm like, this is a bit rough. But again, going back to, there's so many great things about you, honey, that I want to stick around and see what it could be like. So we met in October of 2020. Yay, COVID. We met in the Roni season. And so that was October. In December, I gave her this assessment called the Strength Finder. You ever heard of that before? Maybe not. Gave her this assessment called the Strength Finder because I've been using the Strength Finder for like over 10 years, and it's this research-based, science-based evidence that people who live in their strengths live higher quality lives. It tells a lot more about how they show up in life, in the workplace, but also in relationships as well. And so I wanted her to take this assessment. So one, she can know a little bit more about herself, and two, so that I could learn more about her as well. And two of her top strengths, so you get your top 5 strengths. Two of her top strengths are achiever and learner. And so as we were kind of journeying through the challenges of thoughts and whatnot, I saw in the area of thoughts, and I also saw in different parts of her life how determined she was, how much work she put in. She's a hard-working woman, as she likes to say, but she's a hard worker, man. And so seeing these challenges, and no relationship is perfect, especially when you're just starting out. Like, you are figuring each other out, you're learning each other, and all too often people come into a new potential dating situation and they expect perfection, and that's just not it. We all have areas to grow and improve on, but we can talk about that, get into that another time. What I'm getting at is that there were some key things there that made me believe that she could, whatever was going on with these thoughts and whatnot, that she worked hard enough, she likes to learn, and she likes to accomplish things that possibly we could eventually figure it out and gain some better traction. Can't be swooning over me, babe. Gotta keep going. Keep the swooning to a minimum.
I think that something that he said that really is so true is that no relationship is perfect. Every single relationship will have its struggles, and even this one.
Me? Yeah, for real. I'll be annoying sometimes. Hard to believe. I know.
Every relationship has its struggles, and as you learn that person and as you learn your relationship, it's so important to give yourself grace and give that other person grace. You cannot become, like in marriage, you can't become one without knowing yourself, but then knowing that other person. And so I think that's super important to know is as we went on this journey, there was a lot of learning. Him learning me and my mental illness, and then me learning him and, kind of his struggles, but also his strengths too. And so that's all a part of relationship. That's all a part of learning each other. So my next question, and probably my toughest question, is how did OCD almost end our relationship?
It almost ended our relationship because some of the things that were said, some of the things that happened were just a lot. And times where I felt, a bit violated because of acting out on intrusive thoughts. It broke some trust. And for me, having to deal with that, it was a lot. And so what helped with that was me letting Jada know, man, how I felt, where I was at. And so I was very thankful for her to be open and receptive to how I was feeling, what was impacting me. And so good communication around those things was really, really important. And there were a couple, like 2 key situations that happened where I'm like, it's about to be a wrap. Because it was just a lot. And I wasn't gonna let me be wounded anymore. And there's an element of bearing one another's burdens for sure. But we have to know what our capacity is in bearing someone else's burdens. We gotta stay close to the Father in bearing one another's burdens. Scripture calls us to do that. I believe that's in Galatians, where it calls us to bear one another's burdens. And so, knowing our capacity and having good communication about those things. And I think that was one of the biggest points of Jada seeking out counseling, seeking out therapy, which she talked about in her first video in the series here. But that was important. And so just want to encourage those of you who are watching this, who, if you are the significant other, or if you are the individual who is challenged with OCD, that having open and honest conversations is really important. It's hard for sure on both ends, but it's really important to understand where each other is at, and to care for each other in that way.
Yeah, I think that for so long he was seeing my struggle and the pain in my eyes and how I didn't know what was going on, and he was being hurt and more hurt and more hurt, and he really didn't have the space to tell me that because he was trying to be there for me. He was trying to console me. I remember a couple times just like laying on the floor and like literally a panic attack, and he just like was there for me, and he knew how hard it was for me, and he felt maybe this isn't the case, but maybe like there wasn't room for him to be hurt, that I was the only one, that he had to be there for me, he had to be strong for me, and there wasn't this maybe safety of you coming to me and being like, hey, this is like super hurtful. I know you did that a little bit throughout the process, but the extent of how you were hurt, I don't think I realized until our relationship almost ended.
From working in the anti-human trafficking field and working with victims of some of the craziest things you could ever imagine, man, it's definitely helped me to build a level of compassion and understanding. And God gives us grace to take on certain things, quite honestly. Working in the anti-trafficking field isn't for everybody, because everybody's not graced to take on the insane stories that you hear. And God gives us grace to bear one another's burdens. And so with that, with sitting on the floor, holding her as she's crying and struggling and whatnot. I know my capacity because of the work that I've done. I know my capacity and what I can take on, and that I know that I could work through the things that were hurting me. But in those moments, I just wanted to be there for her, really. What she was dealing with was, man, I couldn't imagine. And so, yeah, that was my focus on how I could show up for her. And I know that God has me. I know how my relationship is with God, and I, like I said, I know my capacity. And I'm not trying to say like I'm this super great dude. We all have capacity to manage certain things. You guys watching this video, you guys have capacity to do things that I would never have the capacity to do, like kill a spider with my bare hands. Don't have the capacity to do that. But the point I'm getting at is, yeah, man, sometimes we have to shelf our feelings a little bit to show up well for other people. And did I do that perfectly? I don't know. But knowing how trauma works, knowing how emotional impact works, trauma is basically a high emotional impact. I know how to manage that a bit from working in the anti-trafficking field, so I knew how to deal with me, and I knew that there was going to be times that were going to be easier and times that were going to be harder for me in dealing with my own hurt over the situations and whatnot. But in those moments, man, taking the dating, taking the romance out of it, and simply looking at her as, man, I'm gonna cry. This is my sister in Christ at the end of the day. And I'm just like, how can I show up and love God's daughter well? It ain't about I'm like, in those moments and throughout some of those challenges, I'm like, who knows where this relationship will go? No idea. But what I do know is that I'm in her life right now. God's daughter is dealing with something very, very difficult. And yeah, I know my capacity to love. I know my capacity to go to the Father and get help from Him. When Jesus was in the garden, I just gave I was a part of this message the other day that was about what's on the other side of your yes. When Jesus was in the garden and asking God to take this cup away from Him, but He said, "Nevertheless, your will, not mine, be done." The scripture after that says that an angel came and strengthened Jesus. And so when we go to the Father and receive help, even if we are in agony, even if we are dealing with levels of pain, man, if we go to Him, there's strength, there's help, because yeah, man, you never know when, a series of life occurrences will cause anyone to have any type of mental health challenge. I've battled depression before. I've definitely had seasons where I did not want to get out of bed because of the different things that were happening in life. People have situations where a close loved one dies, and man, now they're in a mental rut. They never dealt with depression before. They never dealt with anxiety. They never dealt with potential opioid abuse and whatnot. You have these series of things that can happen, and God doesn't call us to just leave people. And so in those moments, that was my focus, really. Like, I didn't care really about the romance. I wasn't so fixated on dating and I want to be married. Like, it wasn't that. It was, like I said, simply, here's God's daughter who is really struggling. I'm in her life, and so while I'm here, I'm going to do my best to love her well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing He did for me was His belief in me, and His belief that healing is my portion. And I honestly do not know if I would be here on this journey of recovery. Like, recovery isn't a point that you reach. It's a process. It's a lifelong journey. And so on this recovery journey, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at without His without his belief in me, because he believed in me so much throughout the process of, you're gonna heal. Thoughts are gonna get easier. You're no longer gonna struggle. And his belief in me changed my belief in myself that healing was my portion. Healing is accessible. Healing is what God wants for us. And so his belief in me changed my belief in myself and how I looked at this illness, and completely and dramatically shifted the way I prayed, the way I sought therapy, the way I just had confidence that I can overcome this. And again, in OCD, there's not like an end point where you're gonna get to, but I am at such a good place, and I'm so thankful of this man's belief in me throughout it.
Yeah, that belief can do a lot. And again, I just want to emphasize on, man, if you are in a relationship with someone, especially if you're a Christian, God got you, man. You as the one who's not struggling with OCD, you as the one who may be receiving the fiery darts, the arrows, the rockets, however you want to call it, the water balloons, the missiles. You being that person, I just want to encourage you to don't be so fixated on like all the things that society, including church society, tells us about, getting married and all that stuff. Like, God calls us to love one another, and we don't even say we love each other, like, because we are saving that for, if we do get hitched and whatnot. But in terms of like biblical love and how we show up for one another, right? Loving your neighbor, man, that's a part of it. But let me also be very clear in how we show love to the person that we're with. I listened to a podcast about OCD, and something that they said in there was super, super helpful. They talked about, you're not obligated to stay. Even though we want to show up powerfully and help and love and be with them through that, it's not an obligation to stay. And the reason I say that is everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is different. Just because we stay together and we're still here, and hopefully we go the distance because she's really great and I would really like to marry her. Even though she's really great, that's us. That ain't everybody's situation. I'm sure maybe the person you're with is really great as well. But going back to what I talked about with strengths, right? I knew how she was equipped, and I saw how she actually put in the work, the books she was reading and researching, because her one of her top strengths of learner was showing up. One of her top strengths of achiever was showing up, and how she pursued healing, pursued knowledge. And so everybody has different strengths. And how their strengths may show up will definitely impact their journey of recovery 100%, because that's just how they show up in life. That's how they attack life. And so that path, that journey may look different. Your capacity, the arrows, the darts, the rockets that they're throwing at you may be a lot more extreme than what were coming at me. It may trigger different things in you from maybe trauma from your past or whatever else it may be. And so while yes, we should show up powerfully and love our brother or sister in Christ, that doesn't obligate us to stay in that relationship.
For us, there was a lot of things that hurt him and a lot of things that I said and did that were hurtful, but it wasn't extreme in a sense of like hurting him like physically or emotional abuse or just things like that are absolutely 100% not okay. And so if those are some of the things that somebody with a mental illness is doing to you, then of course, absolutely leave that relationship, because it's abusive to you, and your health is super important, and your health is, quite frankly, not more important than the person that you're with.
Before we end this video, a special offer from me to some of you folks who are watching this. If you guys reach out to Jada. I'm sure somewhere on this video up below in the description will be her information about how you can follow her on Instagram, TikTok, all the things. But yeah, definitely willing to offer some free strength coaching. I'm a Clifton Strengths coach, and so for free, yeah, definitely willing to offer that to some of you, because how your strengths show up if you are the one struggling with OCD, or if you are the significant other or friend, a close friend of somebody who's struggling with OCD, how your strengths show up and that journey of recovery is massive. Happy to offer that to at least 5 people for free, at least like an hour of strength coaching and whatnot. But yeah, just reach out to her and we'll go from there. You pretty.
So, I know this video has been a bit somber, lots of tears. Here too, some wet eyes. And I want to end on a positive note and just ask you a little bit of how you've seen just transformation happen with therapy. So I specifically went into ERP therapy in December, and it is now
December 2021.
December of 2021, and it is now August. And so I have been doing ERP for about 6-7 months now. And so I just want to ask you what you have seen, the positives that you've seen from therapy, and yeah, just how you've seen our relationship transform.
Therapy's great in general. The ERP therapy, being very specific to helping with OCD, is critical. It's all about getting the right therapy for you.
The right treatment, the right medication.
100%. Yes. Jesus and the counselor, nothing wrong with that.
Jesus plus therapy. I'm gonna get shirts.
Yeah.
Buy one.
Merch, new merch line. But yeah, I've seen how it has helped to transform you, and yeah, just living a more full life, like for real. One of the things that she would have mentioned in our time together was how the thoughts limited her in areas, and God doesn't want us to be limited by anything, and so yeah, that's just a part of the fuel of the belief of, you know, God wanting to heal and help through those challenges. And so yeah, living a more full life, being able to just be your goofy self more. So obnoxious sometimes, man, I swear to goodness. But it's great though.
We had a fight
it's wonderful.
doing this video.
Oh yeah, please show that. Therapy was very helpful for just the dynamics of our relationship, and me not taking arrows and rockets all the time. Well, you know, seldomly, frequently, every week, every other week.
Yeah. How often do you take rockets now, would you say?
Daily? No, I'm just kidding. I don't even know, man. Very seldom does it happen, which is great. And yeah, just her being able to manage her thoughts better and compulsions, and yeah, going days and weeks sometimes without having compulsive thoughts and obsessive thoughts and intrusive thoughts and whatnot. And so it's good progress for sure. Yeah, and keeping it real, like being more consistent. You know, that was coming. Being more consistent, and doing her exposures and whatnot. Dang, you see how defensive she got? She's like, what? But yeah, no, that's real. Like, it's important to continue to
do your exercises.
Do your exercises for sure.
There was a season in recovery when I was doing really well and we were in such a good spot, and then all of a sudden the darts were back because I wasn't doing my exposures. I wasn't doing what I needed to do to stay healthy, and so it definitely impacts our relationship when he's just getting constantly fired out.
It hurts.
Right.
Strong fingers. Gosh. Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bruise.
But anyway, that was hard, and what he's talking about is just the consistency with doing my exercises and specifically my exposures, and how
consistency. She got mad. What do you mean consistency? Go on. Stop.
Sweaty hand and put it all over your face.
Stop sweaty palms.
Right there.
They're sweaty. Wow. Just sweaty palms.
I'm sweaty everything. Anyway, we're gonna get off here in a second, but I didn't mean to cut you off. You might know.
No, it's okay. Sweat monster. Yeah, so a few things in closing this out. For the significant other, and for the one who's struggling or healing, working through OCD, give space for healthy communication. I know, me sharing the things that have hurt me and how I feel, I know it's been hard for her to hear, but very, very thankful that she has been receptive to that. So speak your truth, significant other. Speak your truth, man. Even in these challenges, especially before she, started to get counseling and working through these things and really started to heal and recover. Man, even through that, like, it helped me to find my voice. It helped me to reflect on who I am, and sticking with the Father, man, sticking with God and really taking things to Him. And it brought more freedom for myself. It brought more freedom for me just being who in the heck I am.
Thank you so much for listening to our video, and hopefully you got some helpful tidbits of how you can better support somebody with OCD, and just examining your own capacity and just how challenging it really can be to support somebody with OCD. So again, thanks for being here. Subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to do that. And thank you to my lovely man for coming on here. And yeah, hopefully this helps somebody. So see you next time.